was your weekend?
Not bad.
Me?
I've just been house sitting for my parents all weekend.
Oh. They have cable?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
They got fiber optic and stuff 2 weeks better than I have.
Nice.
So and they bought me a bunch of food before they left. So
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
kind of chilling out. Just
Yeah, that's a win right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister's out of town right now, and I'm dog sitting for her. So she's brought her dog over to my house, and I have to like go to her house and check the mail every day. And every day I go to her house, I'm like, why don't I just stay here? There's no children yelling. Like I don't have to like fight over the television. Ah, this would be nice. Anybody get corona over the weekend? Or? Yeah? You look like the type. You look like exactly who would get corona. Well, where we left off last time is we left off on Friday on our Zoom call talking about media bias. And by talking about, I mean me talking and you guys sitting there awkwardly in silence. It was a whole new level of uncomfortable, not gonna lie. It was fucking weird. So we left off by me asking you guys to start kind of thinking about those three questions of theirs, right? Number one, is media bias real or perceived? Number two, should we even care? And number three, are we being realistic about it? So I'm going to assume that that's what you guys did this weekend, is you thought about those questions. And so I'm going to ask you, number one, what do you think? Is media bias real, or is it something that we just perceive?
A little both.
A little both? What do you mean by that, Ben? Expound.
Never mind.
Son of a bitch. Are you... your generation kills me.
Yeah.
Don't ask me to explain. I just want to... Your generation is also the ones who are always like, oh, somewhere in the middle. No, fuck you. Pick a side. Like, stop fence-sitting, you old bastards. Have some standards, Trent. See what happens? Show up late. Call you up. So Ben says that it's a little bit real, a little bit perceived. What do you guys think? Is there bias in media?
Yeah.
Yes. Why do you say yes?
I mean, like I said, people classically want to choose bias in everything.
Yeah. Right? Because
Everyone has it. It's human nature.
yeah, because media is intrinsically human generated. Humans are biased, whether we like it or not, whether we want to be or not. We all have internal biases we have to deal with and we struggle with, right? So, is it real? Absolutely. I think, Ben, and I'm going to speak for you since you won't speak for yourself. I think what Ben's getting at with the both is that, yeah, there's bias there, but we also make a lot of it up, right? We also see a lot of bias that isn't really bias. That's one of the things I say, like I said, I'm a political junkie, I love politics. There's plenty of good reasons to hate any particular politician. You don't need to make shit up, right? It frustrates the hell out of me when people are like coming up with conspiracy theories, because it's like, but there's good reasons to hate them. Why are you fabricating? Like, that's what I always say about myself. Like, there's plenty of reasons to think I'm an asshole. You don't have to make them up, right? Is Jim Yeager an asshole? Yes, but not for the reasons you think. Is the media biased? Yes, but not in the ways that people tend to argue it is, right? Not to that level. Should we care? Should we even give a shit? So what? The media is biased. Who cares? So what? And again, this is something we've touched on before. I want to hear you guys kind of verbalize it. I want to hear you guys put your spin on it. Should we care about the media bias?
yeah, because it influences your thoughts, and that's where a lot of people get their ideas from.
Right? And again, media here, not just journalistic media, not just news sources, but even entertainment media, right, plays a significant role in how we interpret things. Chadwick Boseman just passed away suddenly. A lot of people, would think, like, who gives a shit, right? He was a guy, he played a superhero, right? There was a lot of power in that story, right? There's a lot of imagery and a lot of important messaging that goes on in those things. So it's not just nothing. Even pop culture is significant. Even pop culture has an important role to play in how we interact with each other, and how we see each other, and how we experience the world, right? What's that about, Mark? Good, how are you? Find a great seat, if you would, please. Third, are we being realistic? All right, the media is biased. Is it gray dot? It's sorry, man. Yeah, you gotta find one with a gray dot. Yeah. We have a screwed up system here, man. For the record, I had nothing to do with it. I just showed up. Yeah, you're good. Are we being realistic about media bias? Okay, so we've acknowledged media bias exists. So, should we care? Sure, because it influences how we see the world, how we interact with the world. But is that a fair judgment? Is it fair to judge the media for being biased? Because again, part of our point of saying the media's bias is real is because, well, it's made by people, and people are all inherently biased. So what, right? Are we being realistic about that? Let me put it a different way, because I just repeated myself like 15 different fucking times. I'm saying it differently entirely. Is it fair to judge the media for being biased, given that everything is biased?
Yeah,
Yeah? Why do you say so, Omar? What do you think?
because the media is portraying an image to
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. Right?
So
And
if
again,
it's biased, it's pretty much perceiving the wrong image.
absolutely. Because it has an impact on other people, has an impact on how we make decisions. It's not realistic to say that the media should be perfect, but it's absolutely realistic to say they should be better. Right? As a teacher, I catch a lot of shit from people because they say, like, oh, there's all these bad teachers. And there's some bad fucking teachers out there. Some of them here. I'll give you names after class if you want. There are bad teachers out there. But because of the position a teacher plays, because of the role that teacher plays in a person's life, they should be held to a different standard than everybody else. Right? And again, I'm going to get all controversial on you guys, make you uncomfortable. So should fucking cops. Every time there's a cop shooting and somebody's like, oh, well, what would you do? They should be held to a higher standard, shouldn't they? I'm not allowed to just fucking murder people. I don't have qualified immunity, so I should be held to a higher standard if I have qualified immunity. The media has an incredibly important role to play. They should be held to a higher standard than Joe Blow. Because me spewing whatever I want to spew on a daily basis doesn't reach the number of people that the Wall Street Journal does. Doesn't reach the number of people that Universal does. It doesn't have the impact. And so they should be held to a higher standard because they have more impact on society than the average Joe Blow. So are we being realistic? Sort of. Right? Again, sometimes you get a little crazy with it, but yeah, sort of. We're being realistic. We should expect more from our media. So what are some critical media literacy skills that we can learn? What are some skills to make us better at that idea of media literacy, being more literate about media? Number one is make sure we look at the purpose of the media content. When you're examining new media, again, whether it's entertainment media or journalistic media, what do you think is the purpose of that content? If the purpose is to entertain, that doesn't mean, again, that you just ignore it and go, oh, it's just for shits and giggles. Because even entertainment media has a significant role to play in the way that people see the world, the way that people interact with the world. One of the worst parts about kind of going away from newspapers, right, was in newspapers there used to be a very clear line of delineation between fact and opinion. Right? You have a news section, which is just straight up who, what, where, when, why. Right? Just the straight up news. And then you had the back section of the first, or the back page of the first section of the paper, which was the opinion section. And at the top of the page it said, opinion. Right? That was where everybody put their, here's what I think. Right? I can't prove any of this. This is my perception of the world. Here's how I interpret data and how I think you should too. It was clearly delineated, clearly marked, this is opinion. That's not there anymore, right? Opinion and data are kind of all bunched together to the point where people aren't able to kind of discern between the two. So you gotta ask yourself when you're actually reading the content. We can't just look at the top of the page anymore and go, oh, okay, this is opinion. You have to actually infer by reading or infer by listening or infer by seeing and say, okay, what are they trying to do here? What is the purpose behind this? That gets extra tricky when it plays into a bias we agree with. It plays into a bias we have. It's very easy for us to see confirming bias as like, oh, well, obviously they're right. It feels good. Well, obviously their purpose here is to just inform, because it's saying everything I already think. Being able to recognize your own biases, like we talked about with critical thinking, and apply it and say, yeah, I like what this guy is saying, but it's very obvious he's trying to convince people to agree with him, not just explain the world as it is. Another critical skill is to consider the source. It's not as simple as some of your English teachers might make it seem. It's not always as straightforward as this is a good source, this is a bad source. How many of you were taught to never use Wikipedia?
I use it anyway. I like Wikipedia.
No shit! Why not? Why are you not supposed to use Wikipedia?
Because anyone can edit it.
Because anyone can edit it, right? You ever tried to edit a Wikipedia page?
Yes.
What happened?
Doesn't work.
You can't. When Wikipedia started, anybody could edit it. They significantly increased control over their content in the last 5 years. But 7, 8 years ago, English teachers all went to a conference where they said, oh, look at this, we can edit whatever we want, ha ha, what a shitty source. And nobody updated the knowledge base. You can't update Wikipedia without it being fact-checked pretty much immediately. It's screened before it goes up, and then even after it goes up, it continues to be screened. You can't just say Wikipedia bad source. It's not that. Right? Do you guys know what the National Enquirer is?
Yeah.
What's the National Enquirer?
No, the tabloids.
Yeah, it's a tablet, right? They're the ones who would run the stories on like Bat Boy was moving to New York, and world's fattest man marries world's smallest woman, and all that kind of shit. Goes to JFK haunting, right? They would just make shit up, right? That's what the National Enquirer was. They would just make up goofy ass stories like that. And yet, several years ago, there was a big hubbub when one of the princes of England, I think the ginger fuck, is it Harry? Oh my god. He's ginger fuck, I don't know. The ginger fuck. The ginger prince went to a costume party wearing a Nazi uniform. And the source that broke the story was the National Enquirer. They were the ones who broke the story. The guy who had the photograph of Prince Harry in a Nazi uniform at a party tried to sell it to all the mainstream sources, and nobody wanted it. The National Enquirer was the only source that would actually run the story. So the National Enquirer, the people who bring you, like Bat Boy, also broke that story. You can't just say this source is always good or this source is always bad. The New York Times is the congressional paper of record. Does anybody know what that means, congressional paper of record? Every day, several copies of the New York Times are cataloged in the Library of Congress. 100 years from now, if somebody wants to know what happened on August 31st, 2020, the history book that they look at is the New York Times. They look at the New York Times of that day. Right? So it's really important. It's got a lot of credibility to it. It's got a lot of weight to it. It's the congressional paper of record. And yet once a year, a scandal breaks where someone from the New York Times, a writer from the New York Times, comes under heat, comes under fire, because it turns out they were making up stories, or they were plagiarizing, or they were fudging the books. Again, my point is, there's no such thing as a source that is universally good or universally bad. So when I say consider the source of the media, I don't just mean, Fox News said it. Where did they get their data? No one who works in a newsroom gathers data themselves. They don't fucking make enough money to do that. They find the information somewhere else. Where did they find their information? Who are they quoting? Who are they citing? Again, I don't know how plugged in you guys are to local news, but big scandal just broke last week, right? Local man arrested for child pornography.
Is that Abraham Lincoln guy?
The Abraham Lincoln impersonator, George Buss, was arrested for child pornography and prostitution. Soliciting, not being. Where did all of those sources get their information? Did they get it from talking to people in the community? Did they get it directly from the sheriff's office? Got it directly from the sheriff's office, right? Because that's where you're going to get the best information. Contrarily, you have some sources who are interviewing local politicians about the story. Why? What the fuck would a state representative have any kind of information on this? How is their insight in any way valuable here? What's the fucking point? That's what I mean when I say consider the source of the media. It's not only what's the website, what's the newspaper, what's the television station, but where are they getting data from and why? Why are they reaching out to these sources to try and back up their information, back up their story? Third, examine the framing of the media content. Again, like we talked about on Friday, I showed you those two images from Twitter, right? The one story about Kyle Rittenhouse cleaning up vandalism, cleaning up graffiti, just a couple hours before murdering people. And the other story about how Jacob Blake had a knife in his car. How are they framing the story? What are those subtle little things they're doing that are affecting the way you're going to see the information, respond to the information? A great example I use in some of my other classes on the critical thinking day is I say the same thing 3 different ways to demonstrate how simple framing can change the entire way the story is perceived. Right? If I write the sentence, George Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin, it's a true statement. It's an absolute true statement. A man named George Zimmerman was responsible for taking the life of a man named Trayvon Martin. If I write, George Zimmerman murdered Trayvon Martin, it's factually inaccurate. Murder is a legal term. Did he kill him? Absolutely. No one disputes he killed him. But the state of Florida ruled that he was innocent, or not guilty, of murder. So it would be factually incorrect to say he murdered Trayvon Martin. Third, George Zimmerman killed an unarmed child. Factually true statement. Trayvon Martin was unarmed. He was 17 years old, which made him a child. It's true. It's absolutely true to say George Zimmerman killed an unarmed child. But doesn't that feel different? Does that feel different than writing the headline, George Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin? That's framing. Just changing the phrasing can change the entire way you look at it. Are they protesters or are they rioters? Is it a police officer or is it a police-involved shooting? You change the way the story plays out by changing the way you explain it. And again, you guys all do this yourselves. When you're in trouble with your parents, like, how many of you have siblings? Okay, good. If you're an only child, I pity you. When you have siblings, you're growing up, your sibling does something to wrong you. Or more likely you did something to wrong them. And your parent asks you, what happened? I was just minding my own business, right? I was just doing nothing. And then he came up and just fucking hit me for no reason. And I was like, hey, let's be calm here. And then he started screaming like a madman. And I said, we should all just relax. I don't know what happened. That's how every kid explains what they did wrong. Right? Every time my fucking kids start yelling, I know that's what's happening. They piss each other off, and they come running to see which one can get to me first, so they can set the stage, right? My 7-year-old has never done anything wrong in her entire fucking life, right? According to her, her sisters and her brothers are monsters. And she's perfect. She's never misbehaved. She's never yelled. She's never been bossy. Ever. She's just getting wronged left and right. As a not just a parent, but as a reasonable adult, hopefully you guys can recognize, okay, that's fucking dumb. That's never the way it goes. But that's the power of framing. It automatically kind of sets your brain up to go a different direction based on how it's described to you the first time. And that's why it's so important to look at in media. Right? It's a rare thing when I get to watch a movie that I haven't heard anything about. There's a show on HBO right now called Lovecraft Country. They just had their 3rd episode yesterday. It's fucking good. If you have HBO, I highly recommend it. It's really, really good. I knew almost nothing about it. I saw one trailer for the show. I was like, I'll give a shit. It's fucking HBO. They're doing good stuff. It's a rare experience where I get to watch a show having no idea about what it is or whether or not it's good before it starts. Every movie I've seen for the last 10 years, I've seen it because somebody told me about it. And they told me it was good or they told me it was bad. And that affects the way I experience the film. Right? It's framed for me before I even get a chance to get to it. So again, it's not just news media. It's not just journalistic media. Entertainment media as well is framed. This is one of the things we talk about in my film class, is things like the male gaze, things like the Bechdel test. These are feminist theories of film. You know, the Bechdel test is a really simple test for determining if a film has misogynistic tendencies. It's real simple, 3 parts. Number 1, is there more than one named female character in the movie? So think of any movie at all. Are there more than one woman with a name in the movie? Number 2, do those women actually talk to each other? Ever in the movie? And 3rd, do they talk about something other than a man? It's fucking scary how many movies you love can't pass that very simple test. They either don't have more than one woman with a name in it, or those women don't talk to each other, or all they talk about is the man. But there are 0 movies where there aren't more than one male named character who doesn't talk to another man about something other than a woman. Every movie allows for men to be something other than fixated on a woman. Very few movies allow women to be something other than fixated on a man. Their entire reason for being is the man. That's framing. That reinforces a lot of negative stereotypes in society. That reinforces a lot of ideas that probably shouldn't be around anymore. Even in entertainment, we frame ideas. In that same vein, look at what stereotypes are being presented. Anybody want to take a stab and explain what a stereotype is? No, because I'm just going to offend people. What do you think a stereotype is?
It's like an image, or it's supposed to represent a demographic, or what is considered like normal for that demographic.
Yeah, it's a way to define an entire group of people by a characteristic, right? One of the most famous examples of stereotyping in film was in the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is a movie that fortunately a lot of people haven't seen anymore, because it really isn't that fucking good. I don't know why people romanticize it. It really isn't good. But Mickey Rooney is a very famous actor. I think he's dead now. Thank God. But Mickey Rooney was in the movie. Mickey Rooney is white. Whiter than Adam. So like, white. Mickey Rooney is in the movie, and he plays a Chinese guy. And this is, I am barely fucking exaggerating this. This is Mickey Rooney's character in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Oh, so sorry. Oh no, what's happening? Yeah. It's only funny because it's fucked up, right? It is. You watch it and like go, how the fuck? Well, because, you know, in the 50s, that was funny. That's hilarious. It's really funny. It's so good. That's a really blatant stereotype. There are far less blatant stereotypes in just about every media portrayal you see these days Right? Just about every single one of them. I long for the day when there's a gay character who isn't a fucking stereotype. Wouldn't it be great if one day a character, their sexuality wasn't the defining characteristic of who they are? Wouldn't that be fucking cool? How fascinating would that be? Or if there was an Asian character whose defining characteristic wasn't their Asianness, they just happened to be. Because there's a lot of white male characters who just happen to be white men. It's not central to who they are. Liam Neeson. Can you think of any Liam Neeson movie where, like, his whiteness is a plot point? Where his maleness is a plot point? No, he's just fucking Liam Neeson. He's just there to kick ass. That's it. But how many characters are there in popular media where that is their role to play? Oh, that's the black guy. Fucking Jackie Chan has made an entire career out of playing off of the stereotype of being the broken English Asian guy. The entire Rush Hour series is how many fucking stereotypes can we throw in here? Have you ever in your life met someone who acts like Chris Tucker? I've been around a while. Been around 40 years, lived a lot of different fucking places. I've never met a Chris Tucker. At least not the character Chris Tucker plays. I've never met somebody who acts like Jackie Chan does in those movies either. Right? What stereotypes are being presented and why? Why do we rely so heavily on stereotypes in media? What do you think?
What did you ask?
So that you cannot have an opinion. I asked, why do you think we rely so heavily on stereotypes in media? Why do we continue to use stereotypes?
I kind of think they're just like stock characters in fiction. It's like shorthand, kind of.
Exactly. Convenience.
Yeah.
The really shitty answer? Because it works. You can't see my face right now, but I'm making a weird expression. Stereotypes still work. If I want you to understand this character, I could go through all the legwork of writing out a backstory and creating this depth and showing you all this character work in their subtleties and their expressions and in their intonations. Or I can just have somebody point out that he's Indian. And there you go. You know everything you need to know about him. Ta-da! Whatever you think of Indian people, that's that guy. Because they're easy and they work. One of the themes of a class like this is that media is a reflection of the society that creates it. We use stereotypes in media because we use stereotypes in real life. Sorry. You ain't as woke as you thought, Trent. I don't know if you thought you were woke at all, but whatever. Also, another thing we need to look at is we need to question the media ecosystem that created the media, and we should try and make them some ourselves. All right, so number one, question the ecosystem. I'm assuming that since you're all in college, you know what an ecosystem is in general. What is an ecosystem?
The study of like an environment, almost.
Yeah, right? Like, I'm fucking fascinated by ecosystems. I'm trying to teach my kids this, right? Because like I put in a garden this year, and my kids are all terrified of spiders. I'm like, no, you fucking want the spider. You want the spider. I built a bat house for my yard. I want bats. They freak the fuck out of my wife and kids. I want more bats. Why would I want bats?
Bats eat mosquitoes.
Bats eat mosquitoes. That's exactly what I say to my kids. We'll sit outside at night, look at the stars, and you see bats. And my wife's like,
They
ah!
also carry rabies, though. They're really common among them.
They have shots, whatever. Don't piss on my parade. We'll see bats fly overhead. My wife is like, oh, yeah. I'm like, no, you can have one or the other. You can have bats, you can have mosquitoes. Your choice. I'll take the spiders. I'll take the bats. I'll take the sparrows. I'll take the birds. Abso-fucking-lutely. Over the mosquitoes? Hell yeah! I would rather get rabies than fucking West Nile. It's a weird priority, I know. I do. I rank diseases in my spare time. Ecosystems are how things work together, right? And not just in a food chain way, but like, the waste of this animal leads to the life of this animal. And they're dependent upon each other. The same exists in media. Media is dependent on each other. I mentioned this before, but I used to work at WREX, the NBC affiliate in Rockford, right? My job as a producer was to write the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 10 o'clock broadcast. So when you watch the news at 5, news at 6, news at 10, it's a guy like me who wrote those stories. Which should put a very different perspective on how you see news from here forward. Where did I get news to put into the script? Facebook, newspapers, wire stories. Sometimes people would email me and be like, hey, remember me? I used to cut your hair in the 4th grade. Anyway, you should do a story about this. No shit, that's how it works. I'm dependent on other media sources and on people I know to create news. One of the big criticisms of the national news networks is that they focus too much on New York and LA. Well, of course they do. Why would they give a fuck about Topeka, Kansas? People in Topeka, Kansas don't give a fuck about Topeka. Like the big storm that just rolled through Iowa, right? The Derico or whatever. Why isn't this getting more attention? It's not sinister. It's not because people in fucking New York don't care about Iowa. It's because it's not on their radar. They're not talking to people who are talking about Iowa. They're not reading newspapers that are talking about Iowa. They're not, it's just not in their sphere. It's not in their sphere of influence to think about Iowa. If I don't fucking care about Iowa, what's going to make me think that my viewers are going to care about Iowa? It's not that there's some evil anti-Midwest thing. It's that it just doesn't come up for them. I used to work at the Rockford Register-Star, and I worked in the sports department for a while. And one of my jobs was to answer the phones of all the angry people, which was a lot. And the thing I heard more than anything else when I would answer the phones is, why didn't you do a story about this school? Why didn't you do a story about my kid's school? Why didn't you do a story about Boylan? And my editor, the sports editor at the time, had a brilliant response. Like, why do we always do stories about Boylan? He says, it's simple, because they win. At the time, Jefferson High School was like 0-500 in football. And people would call up and bitch about Jefferson not being the front page story. It's like, well, they should fucking do something then. Like, you have to consider the ecosystem that we're living in. Another one I would get is people would say, like, oh, well, my son's Little League game didn't get any coverage. Exactly. And my response is like, well, how the fuck would I know? Like, you have any idea how many Little League games happen on a daily basis anywhere in the world? And you want me to cover your fucking kid's game? So I started getting real snarky about it. I said, oh, I'm sorry, did you send us a press release about that in advance? What? So did you notify us in advance of the location and time of the game? Well, no. Like, oh, well, see, that's the problem. We didn't get any notification about where to go. Honest to God, you'd be absolutely amazed what you can get covered in the news just by making a phone call. Just by calling a news station and being like, hey, this event is taking place, there's a good 70% chance somebody will show up to cover it. They're desperate for news because nobody will fucking talk to them. They're desperate for news. You have to consider the ecosystem in which media takes place. Why are there so many remakes in movies? Why are there so many, reboots and remakes in film?
It's got a shoe-in audience. They know people are going to go see it no matter what.
And look at the people who are making it, right? The people who are making the reboots are fans of the original. You've got to consider the source, consider the ecosystem that creates it. And finally, make some yourself. In my video production classes and my journalism classes, that's like one of the biggest things I try to stress is just how much respect you get for people in that line of work once you've actually tried to do it. And realize how fucking hard it really is. Oftentimes this mistake or that mistake isn't because of some slight, it's because, well shit man, there were like 300 other things I was trying to pay attention to and that one got by me. You know, making the media yourself is a good way to see exactly how that process works and exactly how human-centric the process is. And recognizing that media is not some monolithic leviathan that is capable of doing whatever the hell it wants for world control. It's really a bunch of people who are trying to figure out minute by minute what the fuck to do next. You have great opportunities in this area, coincidentally. There's three television stations in Rockford. All of them accept interns. 2 of them even pay their interns. FYI. You get college credit and you get paid to figure out how news works. To actually be in on the ground floor making news. You will have a completely different appreciation for how journalism actually works and what journalism actually is when you've actually been engaged in it. It's real easy to armchair quarterback stuff, right? To just get on Twitter and be like, oh, this fucking moron. It's real easy to watch a lot of films and think you're a snob and think you know better. Until you've actually tried to make a fucking movie, you have no idea how little your opinion counts. Or how little your opinion is valid. One of the most famous film critics of all time is Roger Ebert. Right? He was from U of I, actually. He went to U of I, the Ebert Film School, still down there. Roger Ebert made a shit ton of money and fame by being a film reviewer for, I think, the Sun-Times, Chicago Sun-Times. Really well-known, really respected film critic. And finally, he got so sick of filmmakers after he would pan their films, right? After he would give negative reviews of their films. So many filmmakers would say, all right, dick, let's see what you can do. And eventually he was like, okay, all right, sure. I watch movies, I can do this. And he made a movie that is widely considered to be one of the worst fucking movies ever made. It's called Return to the Valley of the Dolls. If you ever are like really high, watch it. Don't watch it sober, will do you no favors. Get good and baked, watch Return to the Valley of the Dolls. It's fucking terrible. It's absolutely fucking terrible. And it's really interesting though, because after he made that movie, his reviews became a lot more generous. He was a lot nicer in his criticism about filmmakers after that movie came out. Because it's not until you try to do it that you realize just how hard it is, and you realize what's actually going on there. It's not all up to your control. It's not all a matter of your ability or your bias or your whatever. Some things are simply a matter of the system is bigger than the person. Questions on any of that? No? Anybody else want to give a non-opinion? Is that Ben's thing? You guys gonna let that be Ben's thing? Non-opinions. Cool. Well, I was hoping for more talking.
It's a Monday, what did you expect?
I don't know, man. It's week 3. I was hoping to break through at some point, but apparently I'm just way too intimidating. Right? That's what it is? It's really scary.
Well, it's just awkward.
And what's awkward?
This room.
Isn't everything awkward though, Ben? I mean,
Yeah.
fucking Zoom's awkward, this room's awkward. I just can't win. Damn COVID ruins everything. So, I have nothing left.
Oh, you know that,
No. Yeah.
No?
Were you going to ask about the Media Use Journal? Yes, Ben was going to ask about the Media Use Journal.
Yeah, I was.
If you guys...
No, I finished it and I realized
Good.
I have no fucking life at all.
Yeah, right?
I'm on my computer probably 13 hours a day.
It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys haven't yet started doing your diary or your journaling for media usage, I would encourage you to get on that pretty soon because it's coming up really fast.
How much entries do you have to have?
Record your media for 1 week. Right? So for 1 week, every time you use any kind of media, whether it's reading, watching a movie.
Do I just like put it in like point form? Or, like, how do I?
Yeah, just journal it. You're not turning in the journal. What you're going to do is you're going to write a paper at the end of like analyzing your usage. Right? So journal it however you want to. Record it. How'd you do it, Ben?
I just put it in a Google Doc. Just
Google
Carve it
Doc.
in your
Yeah, carve it in or whatever. Journal it for your own purposes. This is basically your notes. And then you're going to write a paper. What did I say? 3 pages?
Right now, did we get any work so far in the class?
I'm sorry?
Any assignments I missed?
No, we haven't done any work yet. I'm pretty fucking lazy, so I don't know. There's not a lot. I mean, there's not a lot of work because then I'd be grading. So yeah, your first real assignment is the media usage diary paper. So bored yet, Martins? You look bored off your ass, man. I'm not gonna lie. I don't blame you. I'm not mad at you. I want some feedback so I can be better.
I don't know how I'm gonna write 3 pages.
When is that due?
When is that due?
It's like the 18th, I think?
Is it the 18th? I put it in Moodle, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Maybe.
Okay, don't look at my YouTube. I was watching Karen videos because it's fucking funny to me. Like I love laughing at other people's stupidity. Okay, I don't like this mouse. Media use diary. October 18th. Yeah, due October 18th. So, but again, you're supposed to be not on the screen. What the fuck just happened? Okay. Sorry, I thought that was just up on the screen. There we go. Yeah, October 18th. So again, the idea here is that for a week, record all of your media usage, right? Just write down. Watched The Five Bloods on Netflix for 2.5 hours on a Tuesday night, right? Listen to Spotify this playlist for 13 minutes on this day, right? Just record all that stuff so that at the end you can kind of put it all together and go, all right, what do I learn from looking at all this from that kind of that 30,000 feet view? When I step back and look at the type of media I'm consuming, what are the things I can take away? One real quick one is like Ben said, holy shit, I use a lot. Right? That's one takeaway. But then get more specific into it, right? I use the internet a lot. I use Spotify a lot. I use Angry Birds a lot, whatever, right? And think about how that, like we were just talking about with critical media literacy, how does that affect your viewpoint of the world? How does that affect your interaction with the world? How does that affect your day-to-day life kind of stuff? Right, Ben?
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
you can do quite a bit of filler by just telling me your findings, right? Not like line by line, that's annoying, right? But summary findings, right? Like, I realized I spend an average of 5 hours a day on my phone.
Twitter.
I realized I spend an average of 4 hours a day playing video games, right? Give me some breakdown of what it is you found, and then tell me what it means. Yo.
What about like classes like Zoom and shit like that?
Is Zoom mass communication?
It's for personal communication.
If you watch the recordings, it's mass communication. If you're in live, it's interpersonal communication. Cool. All right. Well, glad I drove an hour in here. I got my 3D GoPro the other day, so that's fucking cool. So I'm just going to start live streaming my life. It's 360 degrees of me in my office, watching Karen videos. Why not? Think of worse ideas. All right, well, sorry. Sorry, Trent. Jesus. Did you do this to your mom yet?
No.
Come on.
Just my core.
Good, okay, yeah. Dude, you have to. That's your homework. Before Wednesday, you have to go up to your mom and be like, Just see what happens. If you come in with a black eye Wednesday, we'll know you did it. We'll know you did it. It'll be really fucking funny. For the guys who don't remember, that means fuck. So I want him to tell his mom fuck you, because it'll be really funny. Weird hobbies.